10 characteristic symptoms of social anxiety you may not be recognizing and what to do about them. Welcome to episode 4 of my podcast, where we discuss all things mental health related. One thing that I find quite often with my clients with social anxiety is a discomfort with eye contact. Now, this is something very understandable because when we have social anxiety, we have a huge fear of judgment. And this fear of judgment means that we have a lot of negative self-talk. And so eye contact is a very much in direct confrontation with those fears. So what we do about them is we kind of notice this negative self-talk. And let's say we're going to an event, then we are mindful of this negative self-talk and we practice challenging it. So we practice saying things out loud, things like, I'm a great person, I'm kind, I'm empathetic, I'm supportive, and we just embrace our beautiful characteristics and avoid thinking about the things that we don't like thinking so much about ourselves. When we're dealing with the thought of the fear of judgment, then here what we want to do is counteract that with a lot of self-love and say things to ourselves like, I don't have to be perfect to love myself. I'm doing the best I can. I'm getting better with time. And this kind of self-acceptance will help challenge this kind of fear of judgment. Now, another characteristic of social anxiety, and all those, by the way, were characteristics of social anxiety: the fear of judgment, the eye contact, and the intense self-talk. Now, another characteristic is overanalyzing social situations. So here, the experience is that, even if we do force ourselves to go out and interact with other people and socialize, when we come home, we're reflecting a lot about each specific thing that we said and every specific behavior that we've done. And it's quite an uncomfortable kind of reflection. It's not just kind of observing or recalling. It's more of a negative self-talk, over-analysis and over-emphasis on small, minute details that no one else will notice. So just recognizing that this is something triggered by social anxiety is a good start in order to be able to challenge those thoughts and not take them as seriously. So, just because a thought is coming from inside doesn't mean that we have to automatically sign up for it or buy into it. One thing that we teach in cognitive behavioral therapy is that, we can practice monitoring our thoughts and being more mindful. That means taking a step back from your thoughts and kind of observing them. This is a habit in of itself, and you do that by regularly journaling, by using some other tools like applications for journaling. Those are some simple ways to develop this monitoring and this kind of mindful approach. And this will be very necessary because this will give you the time lapse between having the thought and buying into it. It will give you the space, the internal space, to be able to say, what do I think really? What is the evidence for this thought? Is this thought an exaggeration? So we want to refrain from this over-analysis and reduce this habit, okay? Now we have another characteristic, which is intense self-consciousness. So when you're walking in the mall or you're sitting in a restaurant or anywhere doing anything and people are around, there's a discomfort that comes up. And this is because you're hyper-focused on what you're doing and it almost feels like there's a spotlight that's on you and you feel like everyone's watching every little thing. Well, let me tell you a secret about that. That's absolutely factually incorrect because most people care more about themselves than they care about you. So most people's attention is directed towards themselves and their own thoughts. And so very little of that is going outward and very little of that's going to go towards you. Okay, so all I'd say is just be mindful not to be frowning when you're in public or having any strong negative facial expressions on your face, because that does draw a little bit of attention because we are wired that way as social creatures. But other than that, if you're just doing your thing, no one's going to even care. So this is a cognitive bias that exists and it's triggered by anxiety. It's an exaggeration of this spotlight effect. and it's factually incorrect. Okay, do more research about that, and I'm sure you'll find it very interesting, because it sure doesn't feel that way, does it? But yeah. Now, needless to say that self-consciousness comes also with the fear of being the center of attention. And this I can completely understand. I feel like this is one of those more advanced steps. So being the center of attention is a skill that we need to learn and expose ourselves to gradually. So if you're struggling with a lot of the social anxiety symptoms we've been discussing, then of course don't jump into the center and put yourself out there right off the bat. That will, kind of make you very uncomfortable and be quite intense to deal with. Instead, what I recommend is start taking the center stage, as you grow a little bit more in your confidence. Now, a note about confidence. Your confidence will grow not from hiding away from situations that make you uncomfortable. Your confidence will grow truly as you embrace the things we've talked about now and put them into practice. Break them down into smaller bits that are digestible and acceptable for you. Believe me, these are very simple things that anybody can do. And then increasingly apply them into your life as often as you get the chance to. When you become a bit more confident, as you realize that you're able to get used to a specific situation and get comfortable in it, then you take it up a notch. So use this practicing being the center of attention a little bit later on in your practice. Okay, so there again, you need to realize something, that people are interested in others. People oftentimes need distraction from their own mental processes, and they need kind of to think about something other than themselves. So they want entertainment. So it's always easy to be the center of attention once you're being positive and you have an entertaining and a pleasant energy to you. Okay, so for sure, don't try to take up the center stage with anything negative or criticizing and delivering a negative message and these kinds of things, because that's a bit more very, very advanced, where you take the listeners with you and the observers with you on a deeper journey of sharing your pain. That's something that requires additional skills. So I think to start off, it's very easy to stay within the range of positive things to talk about, discuss, play out, talk about your experience in that. Okay. Now, of course, another one that's really tied into all of this is the fear of judgment. So because we have this intense negative self-talk, we often feel like people are going to be judging us with the same harshness, which is again not true. Because let me tell you a secret. We as creatures, we're very social, right? And so we are able to detect when someone's getting embarrassed. And if you actually blush, which not many people do, but many people think that they do, okay? So in any case, blushing actually really triggers like an instinctive positive reaction from other people. It's evolutionary signal that signals to the others that you're someone empathetic, that you care what other people think. And this makes them look onto you with a more kind and positive light. Okay, because evolutionary, we wanted to be surrounded by people who care about what we thought, who care about us, not by psychopaths who are all about themselves and like blindly self-confident, right? So this is a bit of a long story, but if you look at social psychology, there are many studies going over this, that actually blushing makes people warm up to you and feel like they can approach you. And so this is part of what I also think is very important, which is embracing your vulnerability. Okay, we really need to understand that connecting with other people is the actual purpose. It's not leaving an impression on them. That's a bit of a shallow kind of approach to dealing with your social anxiety. Of course, we all want to be perceived as competent and we want to be respected, but the deepest need that we have when it comes to other people and social interactions is to connect. Yes, we want to connect, we want to see, we want to be seen. And so if we really want to be seen, then we need to embrace our vulnerability. And when we do, we have this soft air about us, and people respond to us really well. Because, because of this negative self-talk, it's sometimes hard to do that. So what we want to do is practice positive self-talk. And then when we get those specific thoughts about the fear of, being judged, we want to practice saying things like, what is the evidence that people are this judgmental, really? How many times have people told me that I'm actually really good at that? How many times have people approached me to connect and be friendly? Try to find situations to help you as evidence with regards to this exaggerated fear of judgment. Now, don't get me wrong, a little bit of fear of judgment is normal because it's kind of the mechanism that helps us become alert and perform well. This is a huge story, which I talk a lot about in my course on anxiety. So I've created a course series on anxiety and stress management. It's on my website. You can check it out. The first course is out and it's called Anxiety 101. And I talk about this specific point in it. And then anxiety level 2, which is mastering yourself. This one, I think that's the one I go most deeply into, those kind of cognitive mechanisms that are in the subconscious that are related to how anxiety, the purpose of anxiety, and how we can make use of its purpose in order to perform really well. Okay, so more about that on my website and my courses. I think you'll find it really enjoyable. The last thing I'll end with is, with social anxiety, we have an impulse to avoid social situations. And this particular impulse is quite negative, because whatever we avoid will tend to make us have a drop in our self-confidence. Okay, and the drop in self-confidence will impact our anxiety levels across many situations. Okay, so the habit of avoiding is something that's very natural, that comes up with an anxiety that hasn't been addressed, that's been there for quite a long time. But it's particularly the habit that we need to reverse, because the more we avoid, the more we get anxious, basically. Okay, so don't avoid, gradually face the things that make you anxious, and just understand that social anxiety is a very common experience that many people are challenged with. And all these tools, if you just put them into practice, you will see you will get better.